Hey there, friends. Welcome to the Peacock Homestead. If you are new here, my name is Elizabeth, and it has been seriously cold here this week. Down to around 15 below, but the wind chill was around like 40 below, so it's been pretty crazy. So we've been bundled up and getting cozy inside, making some comfort meals, and we're still doing the pantry challenge with Jessica over at the Three Rivers Homestead. So if you want to check out more content creators and see what they're cooking, just go to the hashtag Three Rivers Challenge. So of course we'll be cooking from a pantry. I'll also be making some mozzarella cheese from scratch, and I'm using raw milk this time, and it works out so much better. So not only have we been seeing snow and really cold temperatures, but we were lucky to see the northern lights. So I just wanted to show you that real quick. I thought it was so beautiful, and it was actually visible because of a geomagnetic storm. And I did read in an article that 10 other states could see the northern lights as well. So on this cold 15 below morning, I decided that I was going to make some oatmeal. So I had some quick oats, and then I had froze a little bit of the butternut squash from when I had baked it a couple weeks ago. So I'm going to add that for a little bit of flavor. So I'm just making 2 servings because it's just the hubs and I. And I'm putting some of that butternut squash in there and a little bit of a maple syrup as well. And I almost forgot, I'm going to add a dash of cinnamon because that just makes it more of a pumpkin pie oatmeal. So that is what we are going to be having for breakfast on this morning. And I would say we have oatmeal at least 3 times a week. I like to just make it from scratch and add different fruits and flavors. And sometimes I'll add some of my jam to it. So that makes it really delicious. Just add enough to make it sweet instead of maple syrup. And that keeps us going for the rest of the morning up until lunchtime. Whenever I'm home and I get a chance to actually make breakfast, I'll usually make oatmeal or I'll make a breakfast sandwich and whatnot. We do like having grits as well, so I'll make that with eggs for my husband. And then you can let it chill in the fridge and then cut it into strips, and you can actually batter it and fry it, and it is so delicious. I've made grits with chicken bouillon spice and did it that way, and it was so delicious. It was nice and crunchy on the outside, and it had a little bit of hint of chicken on the inside. It makes a perfect lunch, or you can have it for breakfast or just any time. For this week's snack, I decided to make my sourdough granola bars, and I'll pop the recipe down in the show notes below, but here it is on the screen. I'm just adding 4 cups of rolled oats, and then I have a little bit of vanilla extract, about a teaspoon. I have 1/4 cup of brown sugar. What I usually do with the brown sugar is I'll make my own in the bowl, so I'll just add 1/4 cup of sugar and a teaspoon of molasses. Then I had a teaspoon of salt, and then you can add a sun butter or peanut butter. So I had peanut butter on this day, so I used that. And then you can use a 1/4 cup of coconut oil or melted butter. So I use coconut oil on this day. And then I added a cup of chocolate chips. And don't forget the sourdough starter, so it can be fed or not fed, it doesn't matter. And you're just going to use a 1/4 cup of that. And I'm going to mix it all up good, and I'm packing it down in my 5 by 9 inch pan. And I bake that at 325 degrees for about 20 to 25 minutes. And of course, I am slicing it warm, but that's okay. We are going to enjoy these right now, actually. You can keep them on the counter for a few days and then pop them in the fridge, or you can store these in the freezer. It's all up to you. And if you eat them fast, I usually put them on the counter and eat them a few days, and then once I get sick of them, I'll just store them in the freezer for another day. If you've been subscribed here for a while, you know that I bake bread every week, and I kind of switch it up, and I kind of want to try different recipes, but this is my tried and true recipe. It's my universal dough recipe, and I'll put it in the show notes below for anyone who would like to try it. It's usually my go-to and my husband's and I's favorite bread, besides the sourdough, of course. So my plan was to make 2 loaves of bread and then use the third piece of dough to make hamburger buns, because I'm going to be making some hamburger buns for our hamburgers tonight. So I'm just going to let the yeast activate with warm water for a few minutes, about 2. And then I'm adding everything together, and I'm going to pop it in the mixer and get that going. Usually it takes about a good 5 minutes. You'll see the dough change. It'll be really shaggy at first, and then it will start to unstick from the sides of the bowl and then form a really nice dough ball. And the only way I can describe it and how it should feel like a marshmallow or a pillow. So I have 2 of my bread pans greased, and I roast this covered for about an hour. It should take around about an hour to get a really nice rise, and I'm going to punch it down, and we're going to get these separated into 3 dough balls and then get the buns made. And I usually don't time it for my second rise, so this is going to need a second rise if you're going to use it for bread. But if you're going to use it for pizza dough, you just want to separate it into your dough balls and then pop it in the freezer. But here I'm making bread and hamburger buns, so I'm going to separate it in 3 kind of even balls of dough. And I like to measure things out. I don't want to bore you with that, but I kind of make sure it's a little bit even. If it's off a little bit, that's fine. And I just get that in there rising. It takes about, I would say, half an hour to get it above the edge of the pan and looking good and ready to pop in the oven. And before you bake it, you want to preheat your oven to 375 degrees. So I'm just measuring these out. I kind of want them even. I think they're around 50 to 100 grams each. It depends on how big you want the buns. So I'm just getting that all measured up, and I like to roll it in the ball because I've done it shaggy before. It looks rustic, that's for sure, but I like it to be a nice round hamburger bun. You can also make these ahead of time, freeze them just like that, and take them out, let them rise, and pop them in the oven. So the hamburger buns are going to cook for about 18 minutes on 375, and the bread is going to cook for 40 minutes at 375, and the internal temperature for the bread should be around 200, as well as the buns. So they should be around the same temperature at 200 degrees Fahrenheit when they are finished cooking. We'll let these rise for a good half an hour. I just go by eyeball and check to see how fluffy it is. It looks pretty good, so I'm popping it in the 375 degree oven for 18 minutes. The bread looks beautiful. It's ready to go in the oven. I got it already preheated because of the hamburger buns. So I'm going to pop that in the oven for 40 minutes. I do love having these pre-made and in the freezer for when I have to work and I am exhausted and I don't feel like baking anything from scratch, especially with the bread as well. I just love having the bread in the freezer. We'll eat one of these throughout the week, and I'll have the other one the next week. Since I made those hamburger buns, we are going to have cheeseburgers and fried taters for dinner. So I got the potatoes roasting in the oven with the hamburgers. I put some cheese on top. We had leftover lettuce and some cherry tomatoes left. And I put a little bit of onion on top. Oh, I almost forgot. I did put a new spice on the fried taters. I had this spice that I bought before Christmas, and I haven't got to use it yet until today. It was the dill pickle seasoning for my taters. It was so delicious. Another dinner that I wanted to share with you guys was just a plain chicken dinner, but I turned it into something that was super delicious. Just some pantry staples. I had to use up these frozen chicken breasts that were in the freezer. Not really quite thawed yet, but that's okay. I have this Kinder's Cowboy butter that I'm gonna just sprinkle all over the chicken, and I'm just gonna add some olive oil to the bottom of the pan, and then I'm gonna add a little bit of sliced lemons. So that's just gonna be a layer of flavor for the bottom. And this was just a bag of lemons that I had totally forgot in my fridge and I needed to use up, and I figured that this lemon buttery chicken would be perfect over a bed of buttery noodles. This was one of the nights I did not even feel like cooking, but the hub said he needed some sustenance, so I decided to throw something together. And those are the nights that when you don't feel like cooking, it seems like your dinner actually turns out better than expected, which is really good. So I'm just going to boil some noodles that needed to be used up, and then we're going to throw this dinner together. Because it takes about 5 minutes for the noodles to be cooked, and I was very patient and I cooked the chicken. It takes about, I don't know if it's not really thawed, it takes at least a good hour to bake this chicken. I usually bake it at 375 degrees, and I make sure the internal temp is at least 160. It was around 190 just to make sure if things are done. We're going to dish this up and fill our bellies. So quick update, we're working on remodeling our kitchen, pretty much the whole house, but we're working little bits and pieces here and there. You know how it is, you gotta save up and get this and that, and it's just, hopefully it will all come together. So he has the top looking like glass, and then we cut out the sink part, and that's gonna go on the counter, and it's going to look so beautiful. I can't wait to get that installed. It's got a lot of work yet before we install it, but he has been working really hard, so I'm super excited. So more of an update to be continued. This week, I made the most beautiful mozzarella that I've ever made. Well, I've only made mozzarella twice, but this time it turned out amazing. And sometimes it's a flop, I heard, and sometimes it works out really well. Well, I've been buying raw milk at a farm stand down the street from me, and I figured this would make the most beautiful mozzarella, and it did. So I have 2 gallons of milk here, and you're going to need 2 teaspoons of citric acid dissolved in a cup of cool water mixed in the milk, and you're going to heat that up to around 88 degrees Fahrenheit. And then you'll add 1/2 a teaspoon of animal rennet, and I'm giving that a stir for about 30 seconds to a minute, and then I let that set for a good 5 minutes. And here I'm going to see if it has a clean break. It certainly does. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the curd. And then we're going to bring the temperature up to around 105 degrees Fahrenheit. It usually takes about a good 10 minutes to do so. And when that happens, I'm going to slowly stir the curds. And you'll feel the change in texture, that they are soft and then they'll become more firm. The whey will surface to the top, and then you'll know it's almost time to put it in a bowl. So you're going to want to make sure they are completely done. They'll be boingy, slightly firm, but you want them to be soft as well. So I'm just going to take these out of the way. And then the next step will be to pop it in the microwave. So I'm going to use the cheating method, and it actually worked out pretty good. So we're going to pop it in the microwave for 1 minute to 30-second intervals. And the whey will be pushed out of the cheese curd, and you'll just have to drain it every time you take it out of the microwave. So that's what it looks like before it's going in. So I'm just going to pop it in the microwave for about a minute, and I'm going to press down on it. And then soon you'll feel that it is hot enough you can start to stretch it. And then you're not going to want to press down on it because it'll get more firm. So you want it nice and soft. And then some of the whey will come off, and you'll see once you stretch it about a couple times, it is good to go. So you'll be able to store it in the fridge for about 1 to 2 weeks. I'm just going to pop 1/2 in the fridge, and we are going to have pizza next week, and the other half will be stored in the freezer. I almost forgot to add the salt, so at the end I added 2 teaspoons of salt, a teaspoon on each side when I had it resting in my bowl in the refrigerator, and it sucks the salt right up. So no worries, if you forget the salt like I did, you can just add it to the top and it will be fine. And I'm starting to stretch it now, so it's hot enough, and I had pushed enough whey out of it. It is forming a really long continuous string. So fold it over a couple times. I'm trying not to press on it, but I finally got that stretch that I wanted, and this is why I need to have a cow so I can make all this beautiful cheese and have all of my raw milk. And that's what I was telling my husband, that this is why we need a cow. Hopefully someday we'll get some land and we'll be able to get some jerseys or something. That is one of our dreams. So you can use any shape bowl. I just decided to use this casserole dish because it was a nice big chunk of cheese. I sprinkled my salt on both sides, of course, and then I let it chill. I cut it in half, and I'll be storing half of it in the refrigerator for pizza night and the other half in the freezer. And that was definitely a learning curve, making mozzarella. It's definitely not an easy cheese. So this last dinner that I wanted to show you guys was so delicious. I dug deep in my pantry for these. I have some chicken bone broth. I also have some carrots from the garden. And we've actually eaten a bunch of carrots this month, and I have half a gallon left. So that's pretty crazy. Then I have some chicken diced up and a little bit of garlic that I had stored in my fridge in olive oil. So I'm starting with the basics. I have an onion sauteing in the pan with some olive oil, some salt and pepper. Then I'm just going to add that garlic and go from there. I have 2 quarts of chicken bone broth. I also have some chickpeas, and I'm going to save the broth from that, and I am going to be making a topper for my hot cocoa in the next video, so I'll show you guys that in my next video. And I'm also going to be adding some water and a little bit of chicken bouillon seasoning to the soup just to spice it up. I love layers of flavor. That's why I love making soup from my pantry. You can make it your own. You can put whatever vegetables you want, whatever meat you want. So you can make it nutritious and delicious. So here I have a quart of kale going in. And then I'm just going to add a couple of quarts of water, just because I have a few more veggies going in. But when I add the chicken bouillon, you won't even know. So I have my corn going in, and then I have my carrots going in. And that is going to be so delicious and nutritious. And then I have all that beautiful chicken going in. So we're just going to let that cook low and slow. And I'm going to strain off the juice for these chickpeas. or garbanzo beans, whatever you call them. And we're just gonna strain those out and add those to the mix, and those are actually delicious in there. I wasn't sure. I like to add those to a lot of soups, but I wasn't sure about this, but it was actually really good. So I got all those veggies in there and some chicken. I'm adding about 1.5 tablespoons of my chicken bouillon spice. And just to make this an extra special soup, I'm making homemade pasta. So it's pretty simple. I use 400 grams of flour and 4 eggs, and I add a little bit of water if necessary. I like to go by feel. And I wanted to make rustic shapes, but I wasn't patient enough to let it dry. So we just cooked it when it was soft. That's fine. And I used the rest of the noodles and I put those away and I cut those up rustic. So the shape that I'm just going to be making is a chunky rectangular shape, and that will be perfect for this chicken noodle soup. You can always make your pasta ahead of time and store it in airtight jars. And I've seen Ruth Zimmerman do that all the time. That is a perfect way to make sure that you have homemade noodles for future meals. I have my water boiling with a little bit of salt and olive oil, and I'm just going to add these to the boiling water, and I'll cook this for about 1 to 3 minutes. Usually just take a little noodle out, try it, and if it's not done, I'll just cook it a little bit longer. We love our noodles al dente here. I don't really like a soggy noodle. I'd have to do it all over again. My next step is to up my game and to learn how to make ravioli or stuffed shells. So I just can't wait to take you guys along with me when I do that. The soup was so filling, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to replicate it again, but I'm definitely going to try because it was so delicious and comforting. I'm actually excited to say that we've been making a really good dent this month in our pantries and in our freezers. So hopefully we'll have enough room to put the 1/4 cow in. So I'm super excited for that. And the other thing is that I'm having problems finding places to put all of my empty jars. So I'm going to have to figure out where to put them because they are accumulating. That's definitely not a bad thing. That just means we are using up our pantry goodies. We're getting things used up to make room for next year's harvest. So that's super exciting. We're getting things done and we're working on little homesteading projects here and there. That's what it's all about, and we're just enjoying our animals. We're getting a bunch of eggs, which I'm really surprised and I'm very happy. My girls are happy. And just wanted to give you a little peek at them. They're just in there working their little buns off. But they're not enjoying this cold. They haven't been out very much. I can't wait until spring and the garden season. So hopefully I get to show you guys all my seeds I got this year and what I need to get. And we'll just be planting the garden, and that will be my next step, hopefully, after the challenge is done. I hope you guys have a wonderful week, many blessings, and I will see you on the next one, friends.